Hi, and thanks for watching. My name is Scott Holderbaum. I'm the station manager for Fairfield Public Access Television. You're either watching us right now on Channel 9 or on the web at www.fairfieldpublicaccess.net. Ridiculously long name, but a great place to watch. Today I've got a larger panel for Fairfield stuff than normal, and today it's all things school related. I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves, and we'll get right into the meat of this. Wow.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks for having us here on FPAC today. Don Acapel, Superintendent of Schools.
Mike Daly, Principal of Fairfield Middle School.
Fred McElwee, Director of Auxiliary School Services for Fairfield Schools.
Gentlemen, thanks for being here today. This is kind of neat because we've got a big topic today that has been in the news a lot. The moving of potentially fifth grade out of elementary schools, the closing of a school. I'm going to let you guys bring me up to speed.
Well, first off, I think the story doesn't really start just with Fairfield. It starts with the economic times that we're having, and not just in Iowa, but across the whole state. All the states are having trouble with their budgets, and a lot of the states are, of course, their budgets are based on revenue, and revenue has been hurt as people have lost jobs and the economy's been bad. One of the things we're having to deal with in schools is a 1.5% cut that first took place in education, followed by a 10% cut in education here in the state of Iowa. And now we, Kim Sheets, the business manager, and I just are working on next year's budget now. Went to a workshop even this last week. But part of the problem is we're starting from that point of that 1.5% cut and that 10% cut. Some of that was backfilled through stimulus money, through the American Restructuring and Recovery Act money. But that now is going to be gone this next year. So that's part of the problem too.
Operating from 10% down from where you were is got to be a difficult place, to say the least, and
well,
some tough
for
decisions.
sure, it's a tough place for the board and the state itself to be in. One of the problems in education is we're in the people business. 80% of our budget is spent on staff and people. It really takes that to the teachers and the support staff and transportation and food service and all that other stuff to run a school district. They say about 65% of the state of Iowa budget is education. Now that's doing pre-K through 12 through the colleges and community colleges they do too, the Regency schools. But when you look at 65% of the state budget, you know, when major impact happens to the state budget, it also happens to education. And then of course it all flows downhill from there. Of course, we're not just based on state income. We also look at some federal income, and of course local support too, or mainly our property tax.
Okay.
But anyway, those have all hit us, so we are trying to look to see what we can do on funding. Part of the problem with funding is not waiting until the last possible second, because it's almost like a meteor coming at you. Okay, the closer it gets, the harder it is to get that meteor to move, and the more likelihood you're going to get hit. I think we see some of those things in some parts of the state where we see, like Des Moines, looking at maybe 200 teachers being laid off, 10 to 15% of their staff. What we're trying to do as much as possible is to look to find things that will not impact our staff, because we lose a lot of staff, then we're going to impact programs, we're going to impact our mission statement to the kids, which is to facilitate instruction and learning. So
you said just a minute ago, you're in the people business.
We are in the people business. So what we've really been looking at is I call it rubbing my two nickels together, turning over rocks to see what we can do to find ways of saving some money. One thing we came up with earlier this year was we were looking at the middle school and discovered we had some rooms that weren't being fully used there. And then the question was, how can we use those rooms? That's where we came up with the possibility of moving fifth grade to the middle school. At that point, we kind of left that. We started to look at the education side of it. What would it do? Is there enough room there? What would it do for kids? Not the money side, but is this something worthwhile looking at? And brought it back to a finance committee meeting of our board. From there, we did talk to staff that same afternoon because we wanted them to hear that it was going on to the full board. It went on to the full board at a work session. The following Monday, there was another work session the following Monday, and then it came to the board. So anyway, yes, things have been moving rather fast. We're trying to do as much research in it as possible. But again, what we're really trying to do is look at things that are coming up and what can we do to run the district as efficiently as possible and provide taxpayers bang for the buck and carry out our mission to our kids as well as we can.
This sounds incredibly prudent, simply as anybody in a household would be managing their finances, looking at something coming up, or a business, that you're maintaining your mission, but you have this event on the horizon,
right,
and you're planning for it.
What we're trying to do is look 4 years out and plan 4 years ahead. We did about $500,000 worth of reductions last year, Scott, and that was very timely. I was a new superintendent. My business manager was new. When we came in, we realized some of this was going on in the state and that the district had really let the cash reserves, paid it down their cash reserves in order to keep the levy as low as possible, which is a good thing for the taxpayers, but they almost let it go too low where we don't have the cash reserves that we really should have had. But what we're trying to do is look 4 years out, and what we see is year 3 out, probably being about $780,000 negative in spending authority, and then 4 years out, about $2.4 million short
Wow.
in spending authority. But that's with these cuts and stuff that it hits.
Yeah.
And again, the cuts, you know, it's kind of like putting money in the bank. You know, just like you put savings in the bank and you get interest on the interest, the cuts kind of work the same way. When you don't get the revenue from the state, it compounds. You know, you lose that revenue year after year after year. It's not one
So
year.
you've got a
at time.
snowball effect.
You've
that
got a
is going to
snowball
keep-
effect, but
if
you can't just wait and let it.
If you don't address it now,
Right, it's just going to get worse, and eventually you won't have anything to do but make major, massive cuts.
a little problem left alone is going to become a disaster, and then when you leave the disaster alone, you've got a catastrophe.
Right,
By planning now, you're avoiding the meteor.
that's what we're trying to do. But
Okay.
it's not an easy task to do, and it's not a very friendly topic.
No,
As you
because,
well
see, as you said, you're in the people business, and the problem is business decisions that are great. These are our kids we're talking about. This, and you know what? People often see, having both of my parents have been college professors at points in their lives, it's amazing. They've said everybody sees the in-class part, or the my child part. But oftentimes it's really hard to see that the teacher goes home and has to do the lesson plan for 30 of my childs. And a principal has to take care of hundreds of my childs, and a school board takes care of thousands of my childs, if you will. And so we only see sometimes the report card that comes home in the worksheet, as opposed to the, wow, there's a lot more here. And I think that's part of what you're fighting.
Exactly, and there are also some other things that are taking place too. Enrollment has been declining. What was it we had last night? We thought we were down 400 in the last couple, maybe 4 years.
Wow.
And that's not just happening here at Fairfield. That's happening throughout southeast Iowa. Pretty much it's happening throughout the Midwest in the, I guess what we would call the manufacturing portion of the Midwest, as unfortunately a lot of those jobs have been moved abroad. But we also are tracking that. We do see that the decline isn't as great now, that we see that we're getting to the bottom of the trough, we think. Of course, the economy, Iowa tends to be a state that goes into recession late and tends to come out of a recession late. Of course, this is a jobless recovery, it looks like, too. But that declining enrollment has something to do with it, too, because we get approximately, I think, $5,700 a student in state aid. If we lose 50 students, then we're losing around $250,000, in additional state aid too. So that is hitting us at the same time. At the same time, as you said, Scott, schools are so important because we're a cornerstone of the society.